Welcome to Part of Love. Okay, so you guys don't know, but we had recorded about a half an hour of awesomeness.
It was so good. We were
but we're gonna start again and we're gonna recap, and we're already
that far into
this
that's
far
how far into the
into
conversation
our
we were.
Conversation. So welcome to Part of Love. I'm
Colt.
And this is the safe space that we've created to talk about all things love. Any questions you might have, this is the safe space to talk about them.
Yes.
Anything and everything is always on the table. This is not a family show.
Oh, God.
Let's talk
You gotta be
about
kidding
it.
me.
Like and subscribe below.
Yes, please. All
Comment.
of the things. We've done this now so many times.
What are we talking about
today? We're talking about COVID. We're talking about
what's new.
We're fucking at 2020. We're talking about how one of the largest or the most constant things that I see are these articles about couples, specifically marriages, being tested during the time of COVID because of the amount of time spent together and the issues that were lying dormant until quarantine happened that are now coming to the surface, and they're breaking marriages apart. And it's this secondary epidemic in addition to the genuine pandemic. And I was kind of saying I'm going to open with that's bullshit. I'm now we're this far in, so I'm gonna lay it out there.
What is bullshit, babe?
It's bullshit that you're blaming spending time together on breaking up your marriage. We are also, as you may have noticed, we're kind of about the truth about love, to steal a phrase from a coworker. Like we are a little bit tough love sometimes.
We're not sugarcoating.
We're not going to sugarcoat it.
But it's tough love.
It is love. It is kindness, not niceties. We are very about kindness, not about niceness.
But that's an interesting thing.
I just think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit to claim that, well, now that I actually had to spend time, now that I had to actually spend time with my wife, man.
There's no escape.
Just can't get away from her. Can't stand her. Like,
driving me crazy.
Just, if I would have known this before 2020, I wouldn't have married her and had a family. Like, that just seems like due diligence. Like, do your work.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yes.
There's a lot of that, like, why did you get married? Isn't the goal to, like, make $1 billion and that way you can, go to your own secluded island and just be together all the time?
It's, you know what? It's the old adage of,
I want to have you be like, go take a walk, or like, go get a massage, go be by yourself. I want to be able to be with you all. I mean, carefree,
Yeah.
I think, obviously that there's so much more to that, but like,
hold on. It's still recording. This happened last Thursday, I think.
What's going on?
The camera actually died. So hold on a second. I'm just going to change out the battery. Is it still recording on here? It's recording somewhere.
It looks like it's recording. Well, my point in saying this is, while you're changing that out, is like,
listen up.
My goal is to, retire early, happily with the man that I love, the person that I love, and, live a life together. So I don't know. We all say on paper, we want to work less. We want to spend time with those we love. And then when you actually got the time together, it caused some major issues to come to the surface that you hadn't quite dealt with yet.
But these are important things to know before. And what I was saying, it's the old adage of, or I don't know how old it is, but there's a hobo on a beach.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know how old it is because I don't know how old that term is.
I've never heard this, a hobo on the beach.
Just wait.
Is he always on the beach?
Just you wait.
Oh, okay.
Just you wait, Henry Higgins. So hobo on the beach.
Okay.
And he's sitting there, and rich man walks by and says, what are you doing here on the beach? Don't you want for anything? He says, well, I'm just wanted a little bit of money so I can grab some food. And he goes, why don't you go get a job? He goes, so why would I do that? And he goes, so that you could make money. And he goes, what would I do with money? He goes, you could buy a house. You could live in the house. And he goes, and then you could work your way up at work, and you could do so well. And you, at the end, you could retire, and you could move to an island where you could have a beach all to yourself. And oh, I get it. And the hobo on the beach is like, I'm already living that life, dude.
Right.
Now, granted, that was a terrible retelling of the Hobo on the Beach classic tale, but you get the idea.
Right.
The concept of are you not already where you want to end up? There are things that I want more for our family. I want us to buy, a large plot of land and have space and have, our own stuff and, be financially free and have that stability so that we can relax, so that there's not that pressure, so that the pressure of financials are off of us. But that doesn't change the fact that I really like being here with you, getting there.
Enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The journey has to be important. So the concept, like for me, I know that, and I've talked about this a little bit before, but I sat in my bedroom with my little, I don't know if you remember those, there were the little half like armchairs. I wish I could dotted line that out.
Yes.
But the little like half armchairs, and I was sitting back and I was leaning in my armchair, and I remember just thinking like, man, I just want to meet somebody who I can live under a bridge in a box, like in a cardboard box or in a tent under a bridge, and they would still love me. Like we would love each other enough. And that's what I have. Thank God, we don't have to live in a cardboard box.
Is I didn't have quite the under the bridge situation. But mine was always, I had the weirdest analogy. For me, it was, I can't wait to like find somebody that I could live. And it always was this secluded thing, right? But for some reason it was, if we were trapped in a car and it sank to like the bottom of the ocean and we never let any like air out. Yeah. If we had unlimited food, I would love to live with this person forever. Like if you had unlimited food, like who would you be with forever? And like nothing else. And I would plan out like, well, we would need this much room to be able to dance and like exercise.
So we could use the back. Car.
Yeah, but we could use the back of the car. I thought in my head, I was like, well, even if we just stretch and we're kind of like, doing this thing. And then I was like, and then we can go to the front seat and do activities, but then we go to the back seat and have dinner again. And then we go to the front seat and like.
And then 2020 happened, and we were like, and we can go from the living room to the kitchen to the bedroom to the kitchen.
Felt like this.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
I was like, always like, I don't need much. I just need the love of my life.
Yes.
And some food.
But because, and a lot of food. But because of that, that's why every time someone says, how are you guys doing? How are you holding up? I feel guilty because obviously there are things that I want to be better. One of which is I don't want 240,000 people to have died from this. I don't want for our entire industry to be underwater and non-existent at the moment. I don't want for all of the pain and suffering that has come from it. But with regards to how we have dealt with what has happened, what is in our control, I have no complaints. We are happy. We are healthy. We are okay.
The repercussions are interesting, how it's affected our relationship. Our relationship hasn't changed. I feel actually much more galvanized.
Yeah, 100%.
And
great word. SAT word of the day, galvanized. Right?
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't even do well on the SATs, but
I feel like you think you did poorly, and I think I did well, but I think your score's higher than mine. It doesn't matter.
We won't talk about it. I get nervous at tests though. I get nervous taking tests. But I think as far as, I guess in the beginning of the whole COVID quarantine situation, it felt I felt bad that I didn't feel bad. Like I felt like, oh, like I felt
about that specific
that
thing.
situation. I feel bad that the world's hurting. I feel bad. I'm devastated that some people we know are like really, really hurting and affected. Things like that, of course. I mean,
there are universal truths, or
Yeah.
should be, about this, where the pain and suffering that has happened,
that's
that is immeasurable, is heartbreaking and awful. That goes without saying. But with regards to personal things,
yeah, and with regard to the quarantine situation that we're talking about right now in this situation, spending time together, a lot of, you know, like, how are you putting up with not being able to leave your house as much, not being able to go on, you know, have dinner parties, not being able to go visit friends. And like, of course, you know, our friends are important to us, but it's like, I don't know, like,
we don't get to see our very close friends very often anyway.
You're totally right.
Our closest friends. What sucked was not being on tour and having any physical interaction sucked. But the truth is, all our friends on tour were always like, why don't you come hang out? And we were like, we just want to hang out with each other.
We're hermits anyway.
So for us, that portion of it helped. But no matter what, the reason that we're like that, and it's not luck, it's not dumb luck that happened. I married someone. I asked you to marry me because I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life waking up in a bed in a small, soft, fluffy box next to this very hot woman. Like, I wanted that. I wanted to wake up and go, nailed it. Like, you know what I mean? I knew that I wanted to come downstairs and feed the girls and go for walks and come home and see you, even when you're not in the best of moods. I wanted to go to sleep every night next to you. Best and worst, richer or poorer, I wanted to be with you.
And we've done it.
And we have been richer for richer and for poorer.
Yeah.
For better and for worse.
But
sickness and
honestly, luckily,
is this like knock on wood?
No. Oh. This is, luckily we did that all pre-quarantine.
Yes.
And cheers. So, thank you. We go on a walk every night. It's earlier now, but we used to go on a walk. You know,
every like early afternoon because the sun sets at 3.
Right.
Apparently, we live in Alaska.
Exactly that time. It was like I was going to say around 6 every night. I was like, no, completely. It's been, but either way, you know, we take your girls for a walk when the sun starts to set, and when this whole situation started happening, we were like, wow. People are really suffering in so many different aspects. But as far as like relationships, we talked about this early on, and we were like, wow, we have been through so much, you know, we're so galvanized at this point, and this is only making it furthermore. And I feel so blessed.
Yes.
Because I've actually have been able to enjoy a lot of this time in a weird way. And discover things. And like, I totally agree. It hasn't been easy in a lot of new ways that actually don't really have to do with relationship, just, you know, work and life, and that's normal. But our relationship is quite, I feel so lucky that we went through freaking hell and back before this all happened. And I'm grateful that, you know, I don't have to blame, at least, you know, this pandemic on going through our, you know, some of our emotional skeletons in the closet, as it were.
But to be fair, it didn't even take 2020 to get us to that point. And that is not to say, like, you know, it is a little bit of a pat on the back for us, but for those of you who are going through emotional, you know, trauma right now and wondering why it's happening, and maybe you're watching this video waiting for an answer, the answer always comes back for us to a couple of things. One, at the pinnacle of the part of love kind of spectrum is self-love, taking care of the self, and taking care of those that you love kindly, not nicely. Excuse me. Below that is what and why. To understand how to get to that self-love is what and why. And how to understand what and why is writing it down. Writing down your thoughts, just free form. We always say free form Jack Kerouac style, we meaning me. And just on the road, get a big long piece of parchment or just a phone or just a piece of paper and write your thoughts out and get them out so you can look at them and see them and see if you're really upset about what your partner's doing, or if you're just fucking frustrated, or if you're just, like, I know when we first came up here, I was super short with you for a little bit because I had started running and my ankles hurt all the time. My crusty old man, dusty bones ankles hurt
They were
all the
already
time.
dusty.
And I acted like an asshole for like a few days because I was like, my ankles hurt. My ankles hurt. And you were finally like, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you talking about? You stop running then. I was like, whatever. But figuring out what that is, and that's such a minute example. There are obviously larger ones. But I'm just saying, taking responsibility for those things, but also if there are larger things, accept what those are. Don't just brush them under the rug, because the love you deserve is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved the way that you hope and wish and want to be loved. And I can safely say that if we were stuck in a car, the four of us at the bottom of the ocean, and we had food and oxygen and apparently a dance floor.
Quarantine, it did some good in the world. It brought some truth and honesty to a lot of situations.
I think that it absolutely did that. I think that whether it's social justice or injustice, whether it was suddenly having, no matter what, it was having the time to suddenly look at situations.
Yes.
We suddenly, and not had the time, we suddenly took the time. The time had always existed. We always, we were forced, we were suddenly forced to take the time to really look at things, and we couldn't escape them anymore. Mm-hmm. And again, whether that was a social justice movement or a social injustice, as it were, mm-hmm. or, the most people ever turned out for the elections.
Yes.
Or for the election this year, the elections really. And more people voted in this election than ever before, mm-hmm. because we were suddenly focused on it. Yes. Right? We had time. Relationships are crumbling and growing. And that's the best part, is we have friends that have had really beautiful experiences where they've met people right before quarantine, and then we're like, I like you a lot, let's do this. And then the other person was like, okay, let's do this. And then they did it. And now they're still together and blossoming. And because
but it's like that sift, right? It's like sifting out what doesn't matter, what's truly the small talk, the surface, the
that low def bullshit.
That bullshit that doesn't matter sinks to the bottom, and what's left are the gems.
Separating the chaff from the wheat, as it were.
Yes, I didn't know that term, chaff.
I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I stopped short of the end of it. So I think it's chaff. CHAFFE. I haven't done Oklahoma the musical. I've watched it.
I know
it's
that. I'm
totally different. She's been making fun of me. I learned that from the Bible, which I also didn't do, but I did read. So, I think that
this time has been a blessing. I think to a lot of people, whether you can see
whether
it right
it feels
now,
like it or not,
whether you might be weathering a storm right now.
Yeah.
I promise you, at the end of that storm, you will have learned something amazing, and it will then push.
And if not, you're not out of it.
No, exactly.
If you haven't learned anything useful from something, the storm
is not over yet.
Well, this is what we talked about the other day. Yeah. Well, the storm may have passed, but you haven't necessarily rebuilt. And we're getting really deep into this metaphor, but we talked about emotional baggage the other day, right? And I think that it applies to this situation. Emotional baggage is just the shit you haven't dealt with yet, right? Yeah. So if you are coming out of a relationship and you're carrying that with you, or you are in a marriage and suddenly you have to spend time with this person and you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? That's just shit you haven't dealt with yet.
Right.
So deal with those things. And what I was saying on the first take of this conversation, which somehow this one ended up
Are we
even
still
better.
recording?
I sure fucking
Okay,
hope
great.
so. What I really like about it is that all of the articles that I saw were dealing with marriage problems during COVID.
Mm,
And I'm sure there's a separate, thing with relationships during COVID, just in general, or dating during COVID. Anything to clickbait. But the thing is, if we do the work before, and that's not to say, once again, to reiterate, you can't do all of the work before, but I knew before we got married that I wouldn't mind living with you because we had lived together. We had spent a lot of time together. I knew your idiosyncrasies. I knew nothing. I will say this, nothing has surprised me in 2020 during our time together, other than
me either.
how absolutely expressive your creativity has become, because you've had time to allow it to be. But other than that, other than being able to read more of your writing, like I haven't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've picked up a couple of new traits because we've had some new time. Like, last night reading to you was the coolest thing while you were stretching. Like I was like, oh, this is amazing. But other than those things, nothing. I haven't learned that you brush your teeth in a way that makes me want to punch tables.
No,
Like,
I know I used that analogy the other day.
yeah,
It's not an analogy.
not the
It's
punch
something,
tables. It was
no,
actually
it's something I've
the brush.
heard, like people complaining about their partner being like, ew, I just can't stand watching them brush their teeth. It's disgusting. And I was like, okay, there's so many things under
Like,
that. Like, you know what I mean?
You never
like,
brush your teeth next to each other?
No, but like if that is the thing that
Yeah, there's
breaks the camel's back, then there's so many other things.
Yeah. But like we hadn't not been around each other in large quantities before.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how you would spend your days. You were going to work. You were going to make work if there wasn't any work. And I was going to have to figure out how to help you relax while you were going to have to help me not relax. and thank God we had already done that particular part of work, so that wasn't actually as huge of an issue. But to focus my work, you know what I mean? And that is not something to get divorced over. No. Those are not issues. Those are issues those are microcosms. Those are or little those are details, right?
Of course.
As opposed to these broad strokes that we're reading about and that we're hearing about and that we're getting messages about. That's what breaks my heart, is people being like, I just didn't know.
Like, you didn't
but
know,
you married,
or you didn't want to know, or you
didn't
pay
want to
attention
acknowledge.
to it.
Yeah,
Yes.
you didn't know, or you saw it, you thought this could be a thing. I just really, really don't want this to be the case. So I'm just going to. And that's a harder thing for us to accept.
But again, I think God, the universe, whatever, karma, it all is working in our favor, whether it feels like it or not, to teach us what we're supposed to learn. And so you are going to have to keep learning. You're going to have to keep experiencing whatever it is that you're supposed to learn until you truly learn it and digest it. And you know what I mean? Like
what I was, you know what? I agree with that. But what I'll say, but I just found this term out the other day. Mm-hmm. I think that acknowledging that as is great, or there's another way of viewing it in that it's a non-personal situation.
Oh, okay.
That you have a responsibility to yourself and to those that you actively love to do the exact same thing. How you get there is my point. How you get there doesn't change the fact that you do have a responsibility to yourself and to the world at large and to those you love most to be the best version of yourself. to learn as much as you can about yourself, to understand those things, and whether it's God and the world or not conspiring to teach you those things. So sorry. It's still our responsibility to do those things. And I think that it's really beautiful that 2020, like you said, has done that for so many of us.
Well, how do we wrap it up?
Wrap it up.
No,
Sorry. I don't know. How do you think we wrap it up?
I don't know. I think maybe, if you made it this far in the video, let's take a second for ourselves and each other to really like think about how this time has affected us for the good and for the bad.
Yeah.
And there's no bad, actually. It's just eye-opening. But
there's some bad though. There's
some people have suffered. And how has it changed us? And how is it pushing us to grow in different ways? It's been a crazy year.
Yeah.
It's been a year that is so unprecedented.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, I know that like so much beauty is already coming from this year.
Well, I think it, as most of our conversations tend to lean towards this, philosophy angle to some degree. We can't control what happens to us. There will always be things that we can't control, but what we can control is our response to them. And I think a nice way to wrap it up would be to acknowledge that whether in circumstances such as 2020 or circumstances in any other year, the end goal should be the same.
Mm-hmm.
You should be loved the way you deserve, and you should seek out somebody that you can love the way they deserve, and vice versa. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise if you're suddenly put into this situation. Yeah. Well, is that nice? Is that okay?
I like that.
There's a tiny bit left in yours. I'm going to give you a little bit of mine.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you.
Love you too.
We'll see you guys Tuesday. Cheers.
Tuesday at noon. Don't be late. We probably will, because we have technical issues every time.